the moment I keep coming back to, even now. I was sitting in a hospital waiting room, 3 hours after my surgery, still in a paper gown, texting my husband to come get me because I had no one else. My phone showed a notification. My mom had posted on Facebook a smiling photo. Her and my dad at a restaurant table with my brother and his wife, champagne glasses raised. The caption read, "So proud of our son, his first big promotion. This family has so much to celebrate." I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I put my phone face down on the plastic chair beside me and stared at the ceiling instead. That was the day I finally stopped waiting. Growing up in our house, there were two kinds of kids. There was my brother Nathan, 4 years older, pre-med from the age of 12, the kind of son who got a standing ovation just for passing a test. And then there was me. I wasn't bad at anything. I just wasn't Nathan. My parents never said it out loud. They didn't have to. It was in the way my mom would pause before answering when someone asked about me. That half-second hesitation where she was deciding how to frame it. "Oh, she's doing well. She's in nursing school." And then immediately, "Nathan just got into his residency program. Did we mention that?" I became a registered nurse at 24. I worked in a pediatric ICU. I held the hands of children who were terrified. I helped families through the worst nights of their lives. I was good at it, genuinely good, and for a long time, that was enough for me. I didn't need a parade. I just wanted my parents to look at me the way they looked at him. They never did. I remember the day I passed my NCLEX boards. I called my mom first, which, looking back, tells you everything about where I was emotionally at that point. She picked up on the second ring. "Mom, I passed. I'm officially licensed." "Oh, that's wonderful, honey." I could hear the TV in the background. Jeopardy, maybe. "Hey, have you talked to your brother lately? He's been going through a really hard week with the residency schedule. I think he'd appreciate a call." I sat in my car in the parking lot of the testing center for 20 minutes after I hung up. I wasn't even crying. I was just empty. Like I'd expected a door to open and found a wall instead. My husband, Will, was the first person who ever made me feel like my accomplishments were real. He brought flowers to the parking lot that day. He'd driven 40 minutes to surprise me. When I walked out and saw him leaning against his car with this goofy grin, I burst into tears. Not because I was sad, but because the contrast was so sharp it physically hurt. "You're incredible," he said. "You know that, right?" I didn't, actually. But I was learning. We got engaged 2 years later. Will got down on one knee at our favorite hiking spot outside of Asheville. It was mid-October, the leaves were turning, and it was just the two of us and the view, and this moment that felt completely ours. I called my parents that evening. My dad answered. "Dad, Will proposed. We're engaged." A beat. "Well, congratulations." Another beat. "Your mother's at book club. I'll let her know." That was it. No, tell me everything. No, oh my God, no. We love him so much. Just, "I'll let her know." Compare that to when Nathan got engaged. My mom called everyone in the family within the hour. She cried. She posted on social media with a 15-photo album. She flew out to meet Nathan's fiancée the following weekend and came back raving about her for a month. When my mom finally called me about my engagement, 2 days later, she spent 45 minutes talking about the venue she thought Nathan and his girlfriend might use if they ever got engaged, and about 12 minutes asking about my ring. She said it sounded pretty. Then she pivoted to asking whether Will and I had thought about our financial plan because weddings are expensive and you don't want to start a marriage in debt. We had been saving for 3 years. We had it handled. I started seeing a therapist around this time, something I want to say clearly because it matters. Her name was Dr. Okafor, and she was the first person who helped me put language to what I'd been experiencing my whole life. Scapegoat child. Identified patient. Golden child dynamic. These weren't dramatic terms to me. They were just names for things I'd always known but never been able to say. "You've been trained to believe that their indifference is a reflection of your value," she told me. "It isn't. It's a reflection of their limitations." I wrote that down. I read it when I needed to. We set the wedding date for a Saturday in May. Will and I did everything ourselves, booked the venue, designed the invitations, chose the catering. We were proud of it. It was a small wedding, about 60 people, but it was ours. Completely ours. I sent my parents a save the date 9 months out. I called to confirm they'd received it. Yes, we got it, my mom said. May is usually when we do the beach trip with Nathan and Stephanie. I let that sentence sit in the air for a moment. Mom, this is my wedding. I know that, honey. I'm just saying May is complicated. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. I told Dr. O'Coffer about that call the following week. She nodded in a way that told me she wasn't surprised. I kept going. I kept planning. I kept hoping. 3 months before the wedding, I called my dad to ask if he would walk me down the aisle. There was a pause before he answered. Not a moved pause. Not an emotional pause. Just the kind of pause where someone is figuring out what to say. Of course, he finally said. That's what fathers do. That's what fathers do. Not I'd be honored. Not I've been looking forward to this. Just a statement of obligation, as flat as a grocery list. I told myself it was just how he expressed things. I told myself a lot of things. 6 weeks before the wedding, my mom called. We've been thinking, she said. And something in her tone made my stomach drop. Nathan and Stephanie are going to be in Denver that weekend for a work thing, and they asked us to come out and see them. It would mean a lot to them. I didn't say anything for so long that she said, "Hello, Mom." My voice was very quiet. My wedding is in 6 weeks. I know, and we're so proud of you. But Nathan and Stephanie are only in Denver until mid-June, and we haven't seen them in a while, and… Are you telling me you're not coming to my wedding? A long pause. We think it might be best if we came to visit you afterward, when things are less hectic. Weddings are chaotic, honestly. And… Stop. I closed my eyes. Just stop. She said something about how I'd understand when I was older, about family priorities, about how they'd video call during the ceremony if I wanted. I don't actually remember how the call ended. I think I said goodbye. I think I put the phone down and sat on the kitchen floor for a while. Will found me there when he came home. He sat down on the floor with me. He didn't say anything for a few minutes. Then he said, "We're going to have the best wedding, and they're going to miss it, and that's on them." He was right. But it still felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. The wedding was beautiful. I mean that without irony or sadness, it genuinely was. The venue was a renovated barn with string lights and wildflowers, and the evening air smelled like cedar and something sweet from the fields nearby. My best friend walked me down the aisle, and when I got to Will at the end of it, he had tears on his face, and I thought, this is real. This is mine. No one can take this. There were 2 empty seats in the front row next to my brother who had come, bless him. He was the one good thing in that side of the family. I had saved the seats out of some stubborn, stupid hope. I don't know why. They had been very clear. I saved them anyway. Nobody sat in them. My brother caught my eye when I walked past, and his expression said everything neither of us needed to say out loud. After the ceremony, he hugged me for a long time and whispered, "I'm sorry, for all of it." "Don't be sorry," I told him. "It's not yours to carry." My parents sent a gift card. $60 to a restaurant they liked, not one we'd ever mentioned. I put it in a drawer. They texted during the reception, "Thinking of you. Hope you're having a wonderful day. So sorry we couldn't be there. Call us soon." 4 exclamation points. Not a phone call. A text. I didn't respond. Will and I came home from our honeymoon, a week in coastal Maine, perfect and quiet. And I settled into this new phase of my life that felt lighter than anything had felt in years. I had a husband who loved me. I had friends who showed up. I had a job I was proud of. I was building something real. I kept my distance from my parents. Not a dramatic no-contact declaration, just space. I stopped calling every week. I stopped reaching out after milestones to see if maybe this time would be different. Dr. Okafor had helped me understand that the pattern wasn't going to change, and the only variable I could control was my own participation in it. That lasted about 4 months. Then my mom called on a Thursday evening when I was making dinner. Hi, honey, I just wanted to check in. How are things? I was cautious. Good. Busy. How are you? Oh, the same. Hey, I wanted to mention, we've been renovating the kitchen and it's gotten a bit more expensive than we planned, and we were wondering if you might be able to help us out a little, just temporarily. I stirred the pasta. How much are you thinking? Well, Nathan already contributed, which was so generous of him. We were hoping maybe you could match what he gave. It was $4,000. I set the spoon down. $4,000 for a kitchen renovation, while they had skipped my wedding to visit him in Denver. Mom. I kept my voice very even. I need to think about this. Of course, of course. No rush. She said it like it was a small thing. Like $4,000 was nothing. Like I owed them something. I talked to Will about it that night. He was patient and calm, and he said, "It's your family, your call. But I want you to think about what this is really about." I knew what it was about. It was a test. It was a check to see if I was still in the role, still the daughter who provided without question, who received nothing but obligation and exclamation-pointed texts, who was grateful for scraps. I called my mom back 2 days later. Mom, I'm not going to be able to help with the kitchen. A pause. Oh. Her voice shifted, cooler, more careful. Well, I just thought, I think you and Dad should look at your own budget for that. I have my own household to take care of. I kept it clean. No speech. No list of grievances. Just a clear answer. She said okay, that she understood, and hung up fairly quickly. I knew it wasn't over. It wasn't over. 3 weeks later, my dad called. He never called. In my entire adult life, my dad called me maybe once a year on my birthday, and even then he usually handed the phone to my mom after 2 minutes. So when his name came up on my screen on a Tuesday afternoon, I felt something tighten in my chest before I even picked up. "Hey, Dad." "Hey." His voice was terse. Businesslike. "I wanted to talk to you about something. Your mother and I co-signed on a personal loan a few years back. You remember that, the $10,000 we helped you with during nursing school?" I went very still. I remembered the loan. What he was apparently choosing not to remember was that I had paid it back. Every cent. I had paid it off 18 months ago in full, 2 years ahead of schedule. I had a confirmation email from the bank. I had paid it off quietly because I wanted to be free of it. Not as a strategy, just because I didn't want to owe them anything. "I'm sorry," I said. "We've been getting notices that the payments haven't been made, and it's affecting our credit. I need you to get current on that." I sat down slowly. "Dad, I paid that loan off 18 months ago." Silence. "The full balance. I have the bank confirmation. The account is closed." More silence. "I don't know what notices you've been getting," I continued, "but they're not about that loan. Because that loan doesn't exist anymore. I paid it." His tone shifted, just slightly, just enough to tell me he hadn't expected this. "Well, I'd need to see that. I'll forward you the confirmation email." I kept my voice completely flat. "And Dad? I think after that it would be best if you and I didn't communicate about financial matters anymore. Or about much, actually." "What does that mean?" "It means what it sounds like." I sent him the email that evening. Confirmation of payoff, date and timestamp. Zero balance, account closed. I forwarded it from the original bank email with no additional message. He read it. I could see the read receipt, and didn't respond. I put my phone down and sat for a while in the quiet. Then I blocked both of their numbers. Not in anger. I want to be clear about that. There was no dramatic moment, no shouting, no satisfaction. I just sat there in the quiet of my house with the evening light coming through the kitchen window. And I thought, I have given everything I have to people who treated me like a budget line item. And I'm done. My brother called me a few weeks later. We have always had a different relationship. He saw it all from the inside, and he never pretended otherwise. "They're upset," he said. "I know. They keep saying you've abandoned the family. I know. A long pause. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. I've thought that for years. I didn't need him to say it. But I'm glad he did. My life kept going. Will and I found out we were expecting a baby that winter. A daughter, as it turned out, born the following August on a rainy Sunday morning when the light was gray and soft through the hospital window, and Will held my hand so hard I thought he'd break something, and she was the most astonishing thing I'd ever seen. I did not call my parents when she was born. My brother came to visit when she was 2 weeks old. He held her and cried a little, which made me cry. And we ordered takeout and sat on the floor with her between us and talked for hours like we used to when we were kids. It was the best night I'd had in years. Will's family flew in from Ohio. His mom stayed with us for a week and made soup every day and folded laundry and called our daughter by her name. Lily, come here. Lily, come here. Lily, look at Grandma. With so much joy in her voice that sometimes I had to leave the room for a moment because the contrast was too much. This is what a family looks like when they actually show up. My mom found me on email. I hadn't blocked that. About 4 months after our daughter was born, she wrote a long message. There was a lot of explaining. There was some blame. There was a question about whether she could meet the baby. I read it twice. Then I wrote back. I kept it short. I want you to know that I don't carry anger about any of this. But I've accepted that our relationship has always worked one way, and I don't have the energy to maintain something that costs me so much and gives me so little. I wish you well. I hope Dad is okay, but I won't be in contact. She wrote back one more time. More explaining. More framing. The word family used several times as though it were a trump card. I didn't respond. People ask sometimes. Friends, co-workers who've heard pieces of this, whether I feel guilty, whether I miss them, whether some part of me wishes I had handled it differently. Here's the honest answer. Sometimes, yes. There's a version of grief that doesn't go away, not completely, when you lose the parents you needed rather than the ones you had. I grieve that sometimes. Quietly. Late at night when Lily is asleep and the house is still, but I don't regret the choice, because on the morning of Lily's first birthday party, there were 12 people in our backyard. Will's parents, my brother and his girlfriend, my closest friends, a couple from our neighborhood who had become like family, and the noise and the laughter and the little girl in the middle of it all covered in frosting and completely unaware of anything except how much she was loved. That was the truest thing I'd ever been part of. Nobody there was performing love. Nobody was keeping score or showing up out of obligation. Nobody would go home and post on social media to prove they'd been there. They were just there. Because that's what family does. Not all of us get the family we were born into. Some of us have to build the one we deserve. I built mine. And it is more than enough. I used to think the hardest part of my story was the wedding day itself. Sitting in that bridal suite, knowing the front row would be half empty. Trying to convince myself it didn't matter. But looking back now, I think the hardest part was actually much earlier than that. It was every single time I picked up the phone hoping things would be different, and they weren't, and I told myself to try again anyway. That's the thing no one warns you about when you grow up in a family like mine. It's not one big moment that breaks you. It's the accumulation. It's the 100th time you mentioned something you were proud of and watched someone's eyes drift to the TV. It's the save the date that got a shrug. It's the 2-day delay before your mom called to ask about your engagement ring, and even then, she pivoted to your brother within minutes. Each one of those moments was small enough to dismiss. Together, they built something I carried for years without fully naming. What I've learned, really learned, not just understood intellectually, is that the way we get treated over time is rarely random. My parents weren't careless people in general. They were deliberate in their affections. They showed up completely for Nathan, and that choice, repeated thousands of times across my childhood and into my adulthood, taught me something about my place in their world. And for a long time, I accepted that lesson. I internalized it. I worked harder, I achieved more, I called more often. I helped with money I could barely spare. I was trying to earn something that was never actually being offered. The turning point wasn't the wedding, and it wasn't the phone call about the loan. The turning point was the moment I sat in Dr. Okafor's office and she said quietly that their limitations were not my failing. That sentence did something to me. It asked me to stop being the problem that needed solving and start being the person who deserved better. That's not a comfortable shift to make. It requires a kind of honesty with yourself that feels almost brutal at first, recognizing that you've been pouring energy into a direction that will never yield what you're looking for, and choosing to redirect it anyway. What carried me through wasn't certainty. I was never certain. I second-guessed myself constantly. What carried me through was something quieter, a growing refusal to keep betraying my own experience. I knew what I had lived. I knew what the wedding felt like with those empty chairs. I knew what it meant that my father called about a loan he couldn't bother to verify was still active. And I knew, more than anything, that my daughter deserved to grow up watching her mother treat herself with the same care she extended to everyone else. That's the part I want to hold on to. Not the anger, which faded faster than I expected. Not the grief, which stayed longer than I wanted. But the choice, made slowly, imperfectly, over years, to keep building anyway. To let Will in. To trust my brother. To sit in that therapist's office week after week and do the work of understanding myself clearly. To stand in my backyard on my daughter Lily's first birthday and feel, for the first time in my life, completely surrounded by people who wanted to be exactly where they were. You can't force people to value you. That's the hardest and most freeing thing I know. But you can, with enough honesty and enough time and enough willingness to feel what's actually true, decide where your own energy goes. I decided it was going to Lily. To Will. To the life we were building in that small house with the good kitchen window light. It was more than enough. It still is.